The night they came to my porch, they didn't bother with knocking. They brought a blowtorch and a grin that felt like a judge's gavel. I woke up to the orange lick of flame against the curtains and a woman I'd never met standing over my mailbox with a clipboard like she owned the damn county, saying, "Eli, you signed the papers. We just want you to be reasonable." 3 sentences in, and I already knew this wasn't about a fence or a late fee. It was about a farm, a line on a map, and a kind of hunger that wears a suit. My name's Eli Mercer. I'm a mechanic turned farmer, an ex-EMT who likes my coffee strong and my dogs louder than my neighbors' opinions. 2 years before the torch, I'd bought 20 acres on the edge of Ridgeway, not because it was pretty, though it was, but because I needed something steady. My hands needed dirt. My head needed quiet. I didn't know the property adjoined a homeowners association with a board that moved like a private equity firm with a social calendar. I didn't know the word easement could be used as a weapon. Marjorie Hale was their president, all pearls and patience when the cameras were on, and venom when they weren't. Her husband, Conrad, had an office downtown and a Rolodex that made people sweat. They wanted what everyone with a polished briefcase wants: control. Ridgeway wasn't just a neighborhood. It was a story they were trying to finish, and my little farm happened to be an inconvenient paragraph. At first it was petty. A notice about an unapproved structure because my old tractor shed had no HOA-approved paint, a fine for unsightly debris. When a storm flattened a stack of pallets, things you could laugh off until they became a breadcrumb trail of harassment. Then came the guys who showed up at dawn measuring my driveway and asking casual questions about property lines, like their tape measure could swallow 20 years of invoices and memories. It escalated the way small things do, by habit, by neglect, by planning. There was a night when my prize hogs went dead quiet, and I found the fence cut and a smell in the soil I couldn't name. A woman from the county later called it contamination, and I called it betrayal, because the worst part wasn't the damage. It was that whoever did it wanted me to know they could. Someone left a dead hen on my back steps like a promise. "Don't be dramatic, Eli," my sister said when I told her, but I'd been a combat medic long enough to read intention in small, cruel acts. This was intimidation. I started a notebook. People think documentation is legalese. It's not. It's survival. I photographed notices, recorded calls, logged names, dates, license plates. I mounted old security cameras on the barn and learned how to patch wires and rig a motion sensor by the porch. There's a certain peace in mechanical solutions when the world goes messy. Tighten a bolt, repair a hinge, adjust a lens. It's straightforward, unlike people. The night the arson team hit the east field, I watched on a handheld screen as flames ate the rye in a pattern too precise for deer or lightning. Whoever lit it had done their homework. The fire jumped the wind and curved like it had a purpose. I drove the farm lane like a man who carries grief in his throat. Sirens blurred, my headlights a single white accusation. At the field edge, I saw a silhouette I recognized from meetings. Board members, a towing truck, diesel still hot. They scattered like something that smelled the law. Conrad was always careful, damn careful, so it had to be more than him. There were shell companies in the background, names that looped on city permits and vanished, a corporate footprint that smelled like development. I learned the word assembly from a federal agent later, and it fit. People assembling reasons to buy land cheap, to reroute streams, to pave over things that had roots that mattered to other folks. I met Agent Ramirez at a diner at noon because that's where the truth smells least like suits. She had patience and the kind of eyes that watched people the way a carpenter watches wood. "We don't do neighborhood feuds," she said, spooning coffee into an already bitter cup. "But when things look organized, patterns, payments, coordination, that's not small-town anger. That's business." The federal folks called it racketeering. I just called it organized greed. We passed photos over coffee. She asked me about the notebook and how patient I was. "Patient is useful," she said, "but at some point patience has to be named." We named it. They watched the board meetings. They traced bank wires. They followed a contractor who'd been cutting hedges at midnight and sending invoices to a shell company with a P.O. box. It was a slow, forensic kind of justice, like archaeology with subpoenas. It mattered. Evidence stitches together what suspicion alone can't. Still, nothing prepares you for the moment a person who has been arrogant enough to threaten you becomes human enough to threaten you with menace in front of your kids' school friends. Marjorie found me at a town hall, and she smiled like a woman offering charity. She said, "We just want what's best for the community." Her voice had the satin quality of practiced righteousness. Then she leaned close and said, softly, "You'll see. There's a curious thing about escalation. When things go from annoying to dangerous, your life rearranges. You think in terms of perimeter now. You measure time in when the delivery truck comes and who has keys. I slept with a shotgun by the bed once, which I resented myself for, not the gun, the resignation. But the real weapon was their confidence. People who believe they're untouchable move faster. The sting came on a Tuesday, the kind of midweek that tries to pretend it's ordinary. We had a tip, a meeting at Conrad's law office with envelopes and signatures. Ramirez moved like people who have rehearsed authenticity. Calm, procedural, quiet. They executed search warrants, and I watched men in suits empty file cabinets as if the truth was a set of blueprints. There were ledgers with numbers that didn't add up unless you were trying to launder ethics through land deals. There were emails that read like scripts. Proceed with pressure, prepare the lots, clear the opposition. After arrests, the town turned into a carnival of whispering. Some people cheered in hardware stores. Others avoided eye contact at church. Diane, a former HOA member who'd left because she'd had enough, came by the farm with jars of pickles, the kind you bring when guilt needs to be sweetened. She'd watched the board change into something she didn't recognize and said, quietly, "We thought we were helping keep values, Eli. We didn't see we were selling them to someone else." Her remorse held like a hand. The trials were clinical and messy and televised in 30-second clips that had nothing to do with the lives they affected. Conrad argued plausible deniability like a magician with one hand behind his back. Marjorie cried on camera and said she'd been misled. The judge unrolled the law like a measuring tape and cut their intentions down into sentences. It wasn't theater, it was consequence. The county reclaimed some land deeds, and the developers scrawled goodbye letters to their acquisitions. But legal victory is not the same as healing. I rebuilt fences. I planted rye where the fire had been, and whatever stubborn thing it is that pushes green up through ash felt like a protest. I started a weekend program for vets who needed their hands on tools and their brains on clear tasks, a small thing, pragmatic and stubborn. People came, an old nurse who wanted to learn to mend fences, a mechanic with a limp from a different war, a teacher who could finally forgive the city for changing. It turned the farm into a sort of mirror, broken things, mended with other broken things. Still, there's an aftertaste to public drama. People bring opinions, the internet brings verdicts, and the comment section becomes a courtroom with no judge. Some called me hero. Others said I should have left the second the trouble began. I had to live with decisions, to document, to stand, to call the law when it counted. I didn't choose a headline. I chose the dirt under my nails. Here's what I want you to feel when you think about this. Power is pretty until it's used, and when it's used on a person with a stubborn patch of land and a stubborn heart, the cost is not just dollars, it's trust. The people who got hurt most weren't in the headlines. They were the neighbors who had to decide whether to watch a friend be pushed or to be part of the push. Sometimes courage isn't loud. Sometimes it's a notebook, a camera, a call you don't want to make. So, I'll finish by saying this plainly: land is more than property lines. It's memory, it's inheritance, it's the place you learned how to sweep hay into a truck. And when someone tries to buy that away with legalese and lawyers and late-night fires, the remedy isn't always punitive. It's often communal. We fixed a fence and opened our gate. We invited people who used to cross out names from ballots to bring a dish and a story. It doesn't erase what happened. You can't unburn a field, but you can decide what grows back. I want to know what you think. Is justice blind or bought? When is fighting back reckless? And when is it the only decent thing left? Drop a comment below with your take: the cruelest thing, the bravest thing, or a time you saw a community choose one over the other. If you've got a story about a neighbor, a board, or a fight that shouldn't have been yours but became yours anyway, tell it. This space is for those stories, messy, human, and real, because law gets the paperwork right, but people fix the rest.